This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 86, where we're talking about Gotham Season 3, episode 8, Blood Rush.
I'm David Mazouz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Drew Powell, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lord Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Did you like our new intro? That is David Mazouz, Robin Lord Taylor, and Drew Powell saying a quick shout out to Gotham TV Podcast. If you missed our interview with David Mazouz, just go to our iTunes account at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. You can hear that interview. We also have our interview with Robin Lord Taylor and Drew Powell, which should be released later on this week. If you want to get those, just again, go over to iTunes at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes, or find us on any good or evil podcast catcher just by searching for Gotham TV Podcast. I'm just doing a quick intro for this episode, and I'll be back later on with some feedback. We recorded this episode over in London in a hotel room where we were kind of getting close to checkout time. So John isn't joining me for this intro, but he will be on the audio review for this episode. And as I said, I'll be back afterwards with a little bit of feedback that we missed out for episode 7 last week. Back over to London.
And yes, this is Gotham TV Podcast live from a hotel room in London. I'm still one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, I'm one of your hosts, John. Yes, we're here at Heroes and Villains Fan Fest in London. Day 2 is upon us, and day 1 has been. And what a great day that was. Loads of panels, the Gotham cast. There was 6 of them up there, absolutely blasted it. They drew a great crowd there. There was Mila Ventimiglia, who used to be the Ogre. He joined the cast of Gotham, which was Alfred, Sean Pertwee, the Penguin, Robin Lord Taylor, the Tigress, Jessica Lucas, Butch Gilzean, Drew Powell, and of course Bruce Wayne, David Mazouz.
Absolutely, yeah, and hopefully you've heard our interview with David. If you haven't, just go back to the previous episode on our iTunes listing over at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. A great little interview with David. And later on this week, we should have up our interview with Robin Lord Taylor and Drew Powell, who we'll be seeing today.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
With that, I think we should be cracking into our episode, John. What do you think?
Yes, episode 8. Blood Rush, where we finally get to see a judge, jury, and executioner. Was that Judge Judy, an executioner?
I can't stop thinking about Hot Fuzz when I think of that line.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, this episode was directed by Rob Bailey, who's done about 6 episodes of Gotham so far, and some of our favourites. Johnny did season 1, episode 7, Penguin's Umbrella. He did Knock Knock in season 2, and Look Into My Eyes this season, season 3.
Yeah, really good. Loved Penguin's Umbrella. Such a seminal episode for me from season 1. That's Look Into My Eyes, where we got to see Jervis Tetch for the first time, and what an introduction that was. Yeah, definitely.
And this episode was written by Tae Chun. This is the first episode of Gotham. He has another episode coming up this season, though, episode 18 of Gotham. So it's excited to see what he brings us in that future episode. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis of this episode?
Sure. After losing control and killing a criminal, Barnes visits Jervis Tetch at Arkham Asylum and demands to know if the virus can be cured. But Tetch says it's only a matter of time before it takes him over. Barnes begins hearing voices that urge him to kill more criminals. In the meantime, Lee and Mario throw an engagement party where Barnes makes plans to turn himself into police custody as he battles with the virus in his bloodstream. However, his psychosis overpowers him when he learns Dr. Simon, a killer he arrested, has been released thanks to his powerful connections. Losing faith in Gotham's justice system, Barnes plans to murder criminals in Gotham, starting with Simon, who he throws through a wall to his death. But before Simon dies, he reveals his killer's identity to a newly installed detective on the GCPD roster.
So, after almost a season with Captain Barnes, and most of the last couple of episodes with an infected Captain Barnes, we finally get to see what he's becoming.
Yes, I suppose we'll go straight into that. Yeah, Barnes becomes judge, jury, and executioner, which is great. I'm really pleased now that we're seeing this kind of disintegration of Captain Barnes. Certainly because, you know, he has been such the kind of straight-laced sort of procedural guy in this show. Certainly, in contrast to Jim Gordon, who's kind of playing hard and fast with all the rules of the book, and obviously becoming then well, not a vigilante, but a bounty hunter. So it's really good now to see him starting to unwind here, and it's all down to effectively his loss of faith in the rules and the procedures of the GCPD, of the laws in Gotham, which resonates with Jim's view on that some of these things just aren't working, and you've got to kind of take the bull by the horns and do some of these things slightly dirtily to get them done and to bring justice. And here we see now that Barnes is going down that similar line, but seemingly with a more psychopathic and bloody streak to it than Jim Gordon.
Yes, I think the blood rushing through his veins, obviously from Alice Tetch, and that drip in the eye is driving him to a little bit more violent nature than he would have had before. It was only chairs that he smashed in the past. Now he's smashing people through walls.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Simon from top floor bathroom through the wall onto the bonnet of a car.
I do love it.
It was really good, actually.
Michael Chiklis hulking out, or thinging out, I guess, to reference his previous role in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love just, he shouts guilty as he does this. And then as he looks down onto the sort of broken body of Dr. Simon, justice is served.
Absolutely. With that blood comes a serving of being able to do superhero quotes.
Yeah, and it would be good to see the executioner. It's kind of like morally, he's probably too violent for Jim, but he's doing the same kind of thing. It's just that he sees that killing them is the way it has to be done, rather than effectively undermining the rules in order to get them arrested and to bring them through the system.
True.
And so there's that commonality with potentially how the executioner is going to work, like with Jim Gordon, with the big exception of the killing, the violence, the murderous rage, all from Alice's blood. And I do think it's really interesting. The only thing I would wish here is that they had maybe kept the mystery of the executioner for a little longer in terms of the other members of the storyline and the cast.
Yeah.
I think obviously for the audience, great to get that reveal, because it's really been building quite slowly. But I just wish that Dr. Simon really had snuffed it as he impacted on that car, rather than clinging on to life to let Jim Gordon know that it was Barnes who had done this, because it would have been good to have that sort of, the enemy in plain sight, doing the various things, principally killing, murdering, maiming, and getting his hands read. But it would have been good to have had that, I think, for a little longer before Jim started to connect the dots, rather than it being handed to him on a dead plate.
Well, yes, he's a detective after all. We do kind of hope that he gets some detecting to do in future, rather than just finding out off the lips of the victim. Now, I presume Jim's not going to believe exactly what happened to Simon here. He's going to still have to investigate a bit to connect those dots to why Barnes has done it. We'll probably see that in the next episode.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Will he challenge Barnes immediately over this, or and will Barnes kind of wriggle his way out of it? I hope that is kind of the way it happens. Although how you explain the side of a building being sort of broken through, that takes great strength.
With a big person-shaped hole.
Yeah.
But that wasn't...
That would have been cool if they'd done that.
Absolutely. That would have been our Batman 66 moment for the episode, definitely.
Definitely.
But that wasn't the only person that Barnes killed in the episode. Let's go on to our other case note.
Yeah, it kind of builds up to his sort of psychopathic kind of rage and release on Dr. Simon, but we have the Toad as well, don't we?
We have Paulie Penny's first. That's the guy that Barnes just follows down the street as he's melting the body of someone that the Toad has killed. That's a really interesting one where Barnes goes after him and just his rage comes out and he rips off his head. Violence for Gotham again.
Just a bit, yeah. That was like, that was really cool. And I do like the way then that kind of Barnes, knowing that what he'd done was wrong and against his own code, it's kind of then takes the lead, takes point on the whole investigation, and really makes a point of that. And then, starts moving through the investigation and the leads, going then obviously to the Toad.
That's right.
Who has hired Dr. Simon to do this work for new faces. Now, slight spoilery here, but I mean, we do know that Jerome is reappearing and that he has a stitched on face. Ooh, yeah. So I just wonder whether Dr. Simon has been doing his work with his magical fingers on Jerome's face.
Maybe. Just that is one of my favourite funny moments of the episode where Barnes says that he's going to take over the case, and Bullock says to Jim, "Do you want to go to the pub?" basically, and then Barnes goes, "No, I'm taking point on the case. I'm not giving you the day off." Great little moment between the two.
And of course Barnes goes to Jervis Tetch in Arkham Asylum. Tetch knows from the end of last episode that Barnes has got his sister's blood in there. And it's really, again, just a great meeting of these two. What Tetch goes, what darkness in Barnes has Alice brought to life? Barnes' rage at the guilty, his sense of injustice, but being turned into a violent reflection of that, rather than, in comparison to Jim Gordon now, a rather naughty lack of following the procedures.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting. That scene between Barnes and Tetch is great. I love that Tetch is in Arkham Asylum, that he did make it there. So obviously didn't have a watch on him when he was being taken away by the GCPD.
It's the right place for him. And I wonder if we will see some more storyline now returning back to Arkham. Obviously a big part of season 2, but what will happen here? Is he going to kind of just like disrupt, turn all of the other inmates against all the guards? You could think that he could actually build an army of loyal inmates just by hypnotizing him.
Absolutely.
Or them, I should say.
Yes, to rotate that revolving door of Arkham, definitely. John, do you want to go on to the next point?
Yes. Keep the glasses on, Isabella. Really interesting kind of psychology here. This trinity of Isabella, Ed, and Cobblepot, Oswald. That again, Oswald is trying to undermine this whole relationship. He wants Ed all to himself, and sees the whole thing slipping away. And really kind of implants the idea on Isabella that she should dress up and become Christine Kringle again. And now she actually does it because she thinks this will get him past that hurdle.
Yeah.
Oswald is that it will frighten Ed into backing away, and it does initially. He certainly, after seeing those glasses on Isabella's face in the coffee shop, I think, he is very afraid of what he might do.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Where she comes in fully dressed as Christine Kringle in the full outfit. She must have been able to kind of scan through a bunch of photographs from the GCPD to find exactly what Christine Kringle looked like. Because surprisingly, even though the actress is exactly the same actress, she knew exactly how Christine dressed.
Well, she had the glasses.
Yes, she did.
To begin with, absolutely.
Full outfit, and then Ed kind of gets completely freaked out. But by the end of their meeting, he kind of says that immortal line to her: "Keep the glasses on, Isabella."
Well, that's it. I do think as well. I loved how they played the bathroom scene with Ed after he'd seen her with the glasses on. As Isabella, rather than dressed up as Christine. And it was the whole reflection then of Christine Kringle in the mirror, rather than Ed's other self that normally occurs. I mean, some of those were great scenes where Ed is battling with himself, with the dual personality in the mirror. And here, he's not battling as such with himself, but he's having to confront Christine Kringle in the mirror. And that was a really nice little touch and a little throwback to those previous moments in earlier episodes, I think.
And even just that little bit of foreshadowing from Kristen in the mirror saying, I'm dead and she's alive, but how long is that going to last, to Ed? You know, nice little threat there to Ed that he's going to lose it at some point and take out Isabella, even though he loves her now, you know? Lovely little touches. But again, you see the dark side of Isabella in this episode, where she's talking to Oswald and finally kind of shouts at him and goes, listen to me, you little idiot, let Ed go. Wasn't really expecting that dark side of Isabella, unless we are right and there's some connection between her and the Court of Owls.
Yeah, and obviously Oswald has just recently been introduced, unbeknownst to him, to the head of the court at the moment in Catherine.
Yes.
From the previous episode at the founding fathers dinner and party. But of course, as always, this challenge to Oswald Cobblepot, this break of his control. You know, he thinks he's controlling her by suggesting that she wears this outfit, that she, you know, he's kind of pressuring her not to go after Ed. And then he's challenged and it completely cuts him. And so he gets Gabe to cut her braids.
I know. That's our little cliffhanger for the episode.
I know.
Isn't it?
I wonder whether she survives. I really hope so.
It's kind of, yeah, definitely. No, I'd love to, and we really want to see more of Isabella, definitely. But it's nice to see Gabe back. The other henchman, when Butch Gilzine isn't around and isn't on Oswald's side. So nice that they're bringing Gabe back, the kind of muscle-bound right-hand man for Oswald. But yeah, he's gone off to cut Isabella's brakes, you know. If Ed finds out about this, there's going to be hell to pay between him and Oswald.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's one of those things. Either she's going to have been, like, thoroughly smashed through by the 9:25 to Gotham Express, or she will have survived for, you know, cutting and rolling out of the driver's seat to safety, or getting through the crossing, the railway crossing. But she will know that it was Oswald.
She has to.
And there will be some kind of hell to pay.
Absolutely.
And maybe this is the start of some kind of breakdown between Ed and Oswald. You know, that Oswald is going to lose Ed because of this, either because she's dead or because she turns him against Oswald. And I actually think that turning against Oswald because of Isabella sort of in his ear would actually make for a really great kind of few episodes, or a great storyline, I should say, into sort of the demise of this lovely Nig Mogglepot that we've got.
Yeah, it would make total sense, wouldn't it, for them to split up over a woman?
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of women and love triangles, Lee and Mario finally have their engagement party that has been kind of threatened since the first episode. Really good kind of moments in this episode with Lee and Jim finally having the uncomfortable discussion about their relationship. Nobody seems to have thought that Jim wanted Lee killed. Everybody seems to have realised that it is the whole idea that Jim was telling Tetch to kill Lee was because he wanted Lee saved, and Tetch would do the opposite of what Jim told him to do. So
the old switcheroo.
Exactly. So that whole little bit didn't really go down the way Jim thought it would.
Yeah, it unfortunately was maybe too obvious. He didn't hide it well enough. The intention behind his choice of Lee when forced by Tetch to make a choice between Lee and Valerie. But yeah, I mean, it is uncomfortable, and obviously we see Mario give him a pretty hard right hook, which he lets him off. He says, I'll give you that one. So I just wonder, like, it seems fairly fighting talk going on here. And I suspect that this might push Mario to take on his father's work. And we get to see Falcone again, John Doman, arriving here at the engagement party. Great to see him back. It's great that they can get him back for these these little scenes and little cameos that he does.
Yeah.
Such a great actor. And I love his interaction with Captain Barnes at the party. He's trying to persuade Barnes to kind of almost be in his pocket a bit.
Absolutely.
And Barnes, obviously with this executioner blood now running through him, is like, this is another sort of nail in the coffin for the system, for Barnes, sort of trying to be blackmailed by the head of the interesting with criminals, a love triangle, previous gossip through the whole Tetch incident, and obviously then the arrival of a psychopathic captain of the GCPD who's about to throw one of the revered guests, highly connected, out of one of the top floor bathrooms.
Absolutely. At the worst engagement party ever, but you can't do nice, happy things in Gotham, really, can you? Normally people are just really happy for the engaged couple, but this one seems to turn out into all-out brawls. It's got the future groom punching the former boyfriend, loads going on.
Yeah, we even have Babs there.
Yes, we do.
Which I think was probably an invite mistake.
I do.
Be honest.
I love it when she comes in and points over and goes, "I'm with that guy. I'm a +1." Or was it that guy? Just because she wanted to get into this party and just have a go at Lee again, where she says, "Don't you miss Jim? Don't you miss the danger that surrounds Jim?" Again, pointing out that Babs is not over Jim at all. She loved the craziness ever since she turned into Crazy Babs.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
I mean, I can only imagine that Leslie was like, as she turns around and there is Babs going, "What on earth are you doing?"
Of all the people in the city, I didn't expect you to be here.
Yeah, I would say exes at engagement parties, not a good thing.
Especially
doesn't really work.
Especially not your ex-fiance's
Ex-crazy, ex-crazy fiance.
Well, yeah, she did try to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah. On to our final point, I think. Just a short one, really. Jim being fully reinstated at the GCPD. We did see that at the end of last episode. He was coming back to the GCPD, so that was a known, I suppose. But just that interaction between himself and Barnes, I thought was really cool. Where they kind of they have that moment between them as former vets, really former war veterans, where Barnes is about to give up. He's kind of saying, "Have you ever had that moment where where you feel like you're not going to win the war?" And Jim says you win them one battle at a time. So Jim is back to being old Jim Gordon, who will fight every individual battle. And Barnes is now at his lowest ebb, feeling that he's lost the war against the criminals of Gotham. And that was a really nice moment to kind of reinstate that again, because it's flipped from when Barnes arrived in the GCPD, where he was the one telling Jim he needed to buck up and battle against every single blight in the GCPD to make the GCPD work. So now that kind of relationship is flipped in this episode.
Yeah, and I it's a nice way of them reconnecting, I think, because obviously, Jim now fully reinstated into the GCPD. So, the two of them did have massive commonality with being ex-soldiers. That certainly, it started off with them both on the same page, and that relationship disintegrated. Barnes effectively losing respect a bit for Jim because he didn't follow orders. He didn't stay to the rules. And now Barnes, that is crushing Barnes by him losing that control and going outside of the rules, with all the voices in his head and obviously Alice's blood coursing through his veins and coursing at the same time. And changing him up. And this reconnection here in the precinct seems to be it might be one of the last few, truly human interactions that Barnes is going to have. And it's a bit poignant in that sense, because I do think Barnes is just going to gradually lose more and more control of the virus in his blood.
I think so. And that final case note also brings us on to our Bullockism of the Week. We have been doing our Bullockism of the Week competition. If you want to enter, all you need to do is just choose your favourite Harvey Bullock quote and email us to feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com, and you could win a Harvey Bullock pop vinyl. The Bullockism of this week is when Jim says to Bullock, "You're not even going to welcome me back to the GCPD," and Bullock says, If we had a big to-do every time you came back to the GCPD, we'd never catch any bad guys. Nice little moment from Harvey. Really good.
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
that. You can tell he's really happy to have his best mate back.
Yeah, he's loving it. Yeah. Absolutely loving it.
Any notes for the episode, John?
No, just that we get Judge Bam Bam referred to in this episode. You know, he is back and presumably writing strange arrest warrants all over town. But yeah, we get a little hark back to Judge Bam Bam.
Mm-hmm. One that I saw was I saw the Gotham blimp in the background. This was
cool.
something that featured in the artwork for Gotham right back to the start. But I think I've never actually seen it in the establishing shots. So there's a little bit of CGI to put a Gotham blimp in the background. I always hoped, right back to Balloon Man in episode 3, the one episode I didn't really like, I always hoped that we were going to get some interaction with the blimps of Gotham, because it's such an unusual thing to see in this timeless city that is Gotham.
Definitely, yeah.
And one final note.
I'm just re-recording my final note because I got the number wrong when I recorded it originally. The number that's on Jervis Tetch's outfit in Arkham Asylum I thought was a really cool moment, because the number that's on his shirt is 106, which is out of Alice in Wonderland. The number that's on the hat of the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland is 10/6. So the guys in Gotham used 106 as the number for the outfit in Arkham Asylum. I thought that was a cool little note.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, nice little touch there.
Yeah. So I think that's our top 5 points and notes. John, overall, what do you think of the episode?
I thought this was a really, again, strong episode. I think this is really a solid season so far. Really enjoying it. I'm going to, my scoring system is going to refer to the wacky hairdos at the engagement party that looked pretty crazy.
They were mental.
So I'm giving this another solid 4 wacky engagement hairdos out of 5. I thought this was really good. It was great to see Barnes finally turn into the executioner. I know there's potentially a costume coming down the line, which looks heavy on eyeliner, but I really do like his deterioration. But I think what makes it really nice seeing this sort of character arc and development is particularly him reconnecting with Jim, and that kind of, it does feel like a final moment between these two before Jim effectively is forced to go after Barnes as a murderer, after finding out from Dr. Simon. I mean, having said that, I do kind of wish maybe that Dr. Simon hadn't, in his last dying breath, whispered Barnes to Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
I wish that maybe a little bit more of that mystery of who the identity of this guy was, could have persisted a bit longer. The engagement party, amazing for its craziness. And I think as well, they're really keeping all these kind of relationships that are in effect in trouble at the moment due to, whether it is Oswald trying to disrupt Isabella and Ed's blossoming romance, or Lee Tompkins and Mario and Jim and that sort of awkwardness that still persists. I'm really enjoying that. I think it's really good, and I think it's a jumping point to some really good episodes coming up as well in terms of how all these things are resolved, especially given that, it ends on a great cliffhanger with Isabella careering downhill with no brakes towards a rail crossing, as I say, as the 9:45 Gotham Express starts to whiz through. So we'll see if she survives. I hope so. Absolutely. I really do.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely another good episode.
And so future Derek will be introducing feedback here. So I assume in my powers of deduction that is what he'll say. He'll say something like, and now on to our feedback, future Derek.
Yes, I will. And John will be back with me next week on episode 9, The Executioner, which will be out on Wednesday, the 7th of June.
Yeah, please send in any bullockisms of the week from this season or any season. Anything that you really enjoy, one of his little quotes, and you're in with a chance to be drawn from a prize draw for a Harvey Bullock vinyl pop. And of course, subscribe to the podcast through gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes, or search Gotham TV Podcast on any other good podcast catcher. We will be interviewing Robin Lord Taylor and Drew Powell this afternoon at Heroes and Villains Fan Fest, day 2. So that should be out later in the week.
Absolutely.
As always, thank you for listening. Bye.
Back to Future Derek.
Well, that's it. That's our review of Gotham Season 3, Episode 8, Blood Rush. Hope you enjoyed that. Just wanted to come back in with a little bit of feedback that we missed out on last week's episode, Episode 7, Red Queen. This feedback came in for Claire Payne, who we got to meet also at London Hero Villains Fan Fest. Really good meeting Claire while we were over there as well. And she starts her feedback with, I really enjoyed this episode of Gotham. I was so intrigued to know what the Red Queen was. Turns out to be a very powerful hallucinogenic distributed by the evil, creepy genius Jervis Tetch. Jim, being its victim, takes Jim on a trippy journey of some incredibly interesting layers. I'll be honest, I didn't understand all of the hallucinations, but it leads to Jim's fears since Valerie, Leslie and Harvey all told him that's his problem. Another great scene was when Harvey told Jim to back off and let the GCPD solve the disappearance of Alice Tetch's corpse. Totally agree. I think this is what pushed Jim to join back into the GCPD, having his best friend tell him, I'm not going to support you anymore unless you go and actually let us do our job or join us on the job. Yeah, really cool. Claire goes on to say the hallucination, which I think is very significant, is Jim and his father. It was so good to get a bit more detail about Jim's background and the exciting revelation that there is a Gordon family member in the Court of Owls. Very cool. So Ed is in love. Isabella has lovely femurs and Oswald looked sick as a parrot when he found out about Isabella. Oswald isn't one to gossip about his staff, but he really felt the need to inform Isabella about Ed's time in Arkham and how partial he is to a neck. The scenes between Edward and Oswald have been magic, but the other intriguing thing about this episode is that Isabella, after an afternoon reading articles on Ed, she's even more prepared to be in a relationship with him. Again, who is this person? I know what you mean, Claire. Yeah, it's interesting. We are speculating that she is connected to potentially the Court of Owls or somebody else in Gotham. It does seem really unusual that she would be so accepting of this version of Oswald. Definitely. Claire goes on to say, I would like to congratulate Bruce on preparing a fine meal for himself and Selena, and then quite rightly too doesn't let her get away with it, and she doesn't turn up on time. The one thing I've always admired about young Bruce is that he does take personal things seriously, and Alfred is just perfect giving Selena a steely look when she leaves. The scene that really stood out for me is when Jarvis sees Barnes at the founders' dinner. Is that my dear sister I see? Absolutely brilliant. He is beyond crazy, and the gradual change in Barnes is very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what parts of his personality the virus enhances. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed episode 8 of the show, where we see Barnes coming out in full force. And obviously, with next week's episode 9 being The Executioner, I presume we're going to see more of Barnes' craziness. Thanks so much for your feedback, Claire. If you want to send in some feedback to us, just email us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com, or you can go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/GothamTVPodcast. Hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed so you can get our interview with Robin Lord Taylor and Drew Powell coming up probably tomorrow, the Thursday, the 1st of June. We should have that out on our feed over on iTunes at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. But again, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again next week with our review of Gotham Season 3, Episode 9, The Executioner. Thank you.
I'm David Mazouz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Drew Powell, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lord Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.